Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to go over some of what we're doing to prepare for Monday's New Year's Eve celebration. As you're aware, the NYPD routinely does a great job of planning and securing large-scale events around New York City. Simply put, this is what we do. And New Year's Eve, when all the eyes of the world are upon us, will be no exception. Nothing in our profession is done alone, however. Our members work hand-in-hand with our law enforcement partners, including the FBI, New York State Police, the MTA Police, and many others, all throughout the year in preparation for this event. This collaboration between agencies allows us to carry out our shared mission of delivering the safest and most enjoyable event possible up to and through the ball drop in Times Square. In a moment, Mayor de Blasio is going to say a few words. Then you'll hear from our Chief of Patrol, Rodney Harrison, and then from our Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller. They'll discuss how we secure events of this size and scope, which includes, of course, everyone from our patrol cops to our heavy weapons teams from the ESU, Emergency Services Unit, our Critical Response Command, and our Strategic Response Group, along with harbor, aviation units, and much more. We want people to know what they can expect to see if they decide to brave the weather. I don't think it's going to be as cold this year, thank goodness. I think it was 4 degrees last year, and head out to Times Square, or if they're going to go to many other venues around New York City that night. As of right now, there are no credible or specific threats directed at our New Year's events. We always have the world's best intelligence analysts and investigators monitoring the threat stream every day and night. And I'm always confident in the work of our nation's first and best Joint Terrorist Task Force, comprised of about 300 officers and agents from the FBI and the NYPD and 54 other agencies. So I'm going to ask for the public's continued vigilance, as I always do. There are millions of eyes and ears out there that night, and if anyone sees something that doesn't look right, that makes them feel uncomfortable, we need to know about it. You can call 911 or the city's toll-free counterterrorism hotline, 1-888-NYC-SAFE, 1-888-NYC-SAFE. You can also flag down a cop, because there'll be thousands of them out there that night. And it's important that you give us a chance to fully investigate. That's how the people we serve can share the responsibility for public safety. Successful and enjoyable events like this take everyone doing their part. When it comes to the safety and protection we provide, there will be much the public will see and much the public won't see. And the bottom line is this: people will be safe on Monday, and they should feel safe too, because the NYPD and our law enforcement partners are prepared. This is going to be one of the most well-policed, best protected events at one of the safest venues in the entire world. And New York City will have another great New Year's Eve celebration, as we do every year. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And all of us had the opportunity just a few hours ago to join with the new graduating class, young men and women joining the NYPD, and they will all be out there on New Year's Eve. Another inspiring moment to see the caliber of people joining the NYPD continuing to build on its success. I want to congratulate you, Commissioner, and First Deputy Commissioner Tucker, Chief of Department Monahan, all the leadership of the NYPD. Another very successful year. A few more days to go, but the information we have now points us to another very successful year, another year of crime going down, another year of great achievement for the NYPD. Now, New Year's Eve is one of the greatest moments of the year for New York City. It's a night when we shine all over the nation, all over the globe. Countless millions watch on television, and it could be up to 2 million people in Times Square itself. NYPD has done an outstanding job year after year keeping the event safe and orderly, and that's what we expect again this New Year's Eve. The ability of NYPD to prepare for such a thing is legendary. For such a great event, obviously the thousands of officers there make things happen the right way for everyone who attends. As the Commissioner said, no specific incredible threats at this moment, but we'll constantly be vigilant. The NYPD intensive presence is part of what makes this event work. So you will see a lot of officers. You'll see a lot of officers with a lot of gear and long guns and the kinds of weaponry needed for securing such a huge event. There obviously will be measures you won't see as well. But what's so important to remind everyone is that although we depend on the NYPD also depends on all of us. If we have information as New Yorkers, we have to bring it forward. So that idea, if you see something, say something, that's not just a slogan. It's not something that people have heard but never meant anything. In fact, attacks have been stopped because someone said something. Lives have been saved because someone said something. Everyone needs to be ready if they see something, if something doesn't feel right. You've got to tell an NYPD officer so that they can have that information and act on it. Want to just say, as we close out the year, we remain the safest big city in America. That has been an extraordinary effort over years and decades, but it's really been particularly strong in the last few years. The NYPD has set new records each year. We depend on the people of this city to be partners with the NYPD at the community level. We want to deepen that in 2019. We believe that being the safest big city in America has to go hand in hand with being the fairest big city in America, and that's what we're going to focus on even more intently in 2019. Let me just say a few words in Spanish. Este año está a punto de cambiar, pero cada año el Departamento de Policía ofrece un servicio de seguridad excelente en la noche de Año Nuevo. No hay amenazas creíbles y específicas en este momento, pero tomaremos medidas adicionales de seguridad. Y todos pueden ayudar. Si ven algo, digan algo. With that, I want to turn to our Chief of Patrol and complimenting him and all the men and women under his command for another very successful year. Chief of Patrol, Rodney Harrison.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And once again, thank you for your constant support of the NYPD. If I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about the logistics that we have in place for the New Year's Eve event. Times Square will be closed at 4 a.m., and we expect street closures around 11 a.m. Correction, 4 a.m. for the Times Square closures, 11 a.m. for the traffic closures. Those traffic closures are going to be between 38th Street to 59th Street, between 6th and 8th Avenue, at which time we will start allowing people into the pins. Those entry points will be at 38th, 49th, 52nd, 58th, 59th, on 6th and 8th Avenue, as well as we'll have an entry point at 54th and 6th and 55th and 8th Avenue. At each one of these entry points, you'll see officers with magnetometers to make sure that no suspicious objects get in. Please, there are prohibited items, no backpacks, no large packages, no coolers, no umbrellas, no lawn chairs, no alcohol. Also at these entry points, you will see lights as well as officers with long guns, just to make sure that the event goes smoothly. We're going to have numerous amount of blocker cars, sand trucks, as well as cement barriers to make sure that the outer perimeters stay secure. As the mayor and as well as the commissioner stated, please, ladies and gentlemen, if you see something, say something. We'll have thousands of cops out there working, as well as just to be brought up abreast regarding things that are going on, street closures or other issues that may go on. Follow us on our social media. Our Twitter is NYPD News, and our Instagram and Facebook is NYPD. Thank you once again, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everybody for your constant support.
Turn it over to Deputy Commissioner of Counterterrorism and Intel, John Miller. John?
Thanks, Commissioner. As in every year when we do this very complex counterterrorism overlay, it's all built into preparation. We start this long ahead of time. We have had a plan that we take off the shelf every year, but I have to say every year we take it off the shelf, there's always something new in it. One of the things that you'll see again this year is the hotel teams, where we have intelligence detectives embedded in all of the hotels well in advance of New Year's Eve, so that they have that chance to get to know the staff, get to know the security people, get to know the housekeeping staff, so it really becomes one stop. If somebody sees something suspicious, they know those investigators are there. They have communications, master keys with the hotel staff to get into any place they need to get in to look. They have communications with the teams outside in case they need help to respond. That was very successful last year. We're doing that again this year. In terms of outreach, our Nexus team from the Intelligence Bureau has done over 275 visits to different sectors in and around or related to the celebration, including chemical outlets, financial institutions, parking garages, truck rental locations, retail locations, and of course the theaters, just to heighten the awareness and the communications between those entities and their security people. Of course, we'll have Intelligence Bureau response teams, not just in and around Times Square, so that if there is somebody who heeds the "if you see something, say something" mantra, that somebody can get to that very quickly, interview that person, and investigate that right away. Beyond the bow tie, of course, we have 94 other special events citywide, and then the major ones, Coney Island, Prospect Park, Times Square. So we have response teams geared for this throughout the city who are going to be taking their cues from the operations desk, wherever we have a report, people who can go look at that right away. We have integrated command posts that pull together the FBI, JTTF, the Counterterrorism Bureau, Intelligence Bureau, the Weapons of Mass Destruction people, so you have all that information coming into one forward command post along with the Joint Operations Center at headquarters. We'll be using over 1,225 cameras. A lot of these are existing cameras that are plugged into with our private stakeholders. A large number of them are fixed police department cameras, but every year we always increase that with portable cameras that we put up that we can get a signal from. So that all comes into the Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. That's a lot of cameras, way too many to look at, but it gives us the advantage of, if we have some tipping and queuing on something that needs to look at, we can dial up a camera, and odds are we're going to have one that has a view of that. More importantly, if there is an event, we were able to dial up a camera and rewind through that and see exactly what happened and what was involved. What's different this year is the counter-drone technology and the drone factor, which is we'll be deploying NYPD drones for Overwatch. We haven't done that before, but that's going to give us a visual aid and a flexibility of being able to move a camera to a certain spot with great rapidity through a tremendous crowd. But also counter-drone technology based on a change in the federal law that occurred in mid-September. Our FBI, JTTF partners will be bringing up their people from headquarters. We've deployed this at most of the major special events from the fall on, and we'll be using it again. On the what you're going to see side, you see the bomb squad response teams out there. You see the explosive detection K9 dogs at the checkpoints and in the inner perimeter. You'll see over 235 blocker vehicles, everything from police cars to sanitation sand trucks. In the threat stream, we monitor that constantly. As the police commissioner said, our investigators, and particularly our analysts, live on the internet, have their human sources. We watch that all the time, looking for anything that needs to be followed up on investigatively. Of course, we do that hand in glove with Bill Sweeney's people and Brian Parman's people at the JTTF. So at any one time, we're tracking the threats that are coming in. We're running the leads both here and through the JTTF internationally. We depend on our people. That's our FBI partners. That's our international and intelligence community partners. That's our detectives and our analysts. We depend on our partners, obviously, and we depend on the public. As it's been said here, if you see something, say something. We have the 188 New York City SAFE number. That goes right to our operations desk, and that's where those response teams are poised to roll out on anything. But as the police commissioner is fond of saying, look around. I mean, as you get to one of these events, particularly in Times Square, there's probably going to be a cop within 10 feet of you. If you see something, you can go right to them directly, and we've been very successful that way.
Excellent. John, thank you. And just want to make one more note before we go into questions about New Year's Eve and then other police matters. Just want to express gratitude as I think a very good news story, which is the relationship between the NYPD and the FBI and all the other members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I want to say to Bill Sweeney the FBI Assistant in Charge for the New York office, thank you for a great year of cooperation. I think this is something to really recognize that, you know, in the past, there wasn't always what we would want here or anywhere else around the world in terms of the level of communication and cooperation, but now in recent years, cooperation, communication, same page, same strategy has been outstanding, and I think it's really made this a much safer city. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. It's greatly appreciated. I also want to just take a second to thank the city for the response when our agent was shot a couple weeks ago. You treated us like one of your own. It was noted by all of us, so thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bill. Going to take some on-topic questions.
So in the last year, there's been the shooting at the concert in Las Vegas. How important is the hotel security portion of what you're doing going to be important this year, as that did not happen before last year?
Yeah. So that event happened in, I think, October 1st of 2017. So last year, we had to plan for the events of Las Vegas. And we had the sniper teams, the observation teams that we put out throughout the bow tie area and beyond to make sure that we can be mindful of that threat. Yeah.
Been considered.
Yes, this is in the back row.
Mr. Miller, can you elaborate on the master key situation? Do you have access to guest rooms? Do you have to get permission from someone?
In each hotel, we depend on the hotel staff, but obviously if there's an exigent circumstance, we go with the hotel staff, hotel security, and they carry, routinely, hotel security carries what they call fire, life, safety keys where they can get into any door.
And is this to address issues like the Las Vegas shooting in case someone's shooting from above, or why do you have that access?
I think it's self-explanatory.
Mark?
About the drones, can you elaborate a little bit as to how many drones are going to be deployed, or in what particular areas, for instance?
Chief Monahan will talk about the NYPD drones, and John will follow up on counter-drone technology.
Yeah, we're going to be putting up one drone in the bow tie area that'll be able to give us a whole view of the area.
Thank you for that lengthy explanation.
Short and sweet, that's what I realized.
Beautiful. Amen.
Thank you. John, you want to talk a little bit more about counter-drone?
No.
Okay, we're on a roll. We're on a roll.
Well,
You guys are very helpful, thank you.
yes. Suffice it to say, because of the change in the law, the Department of Justice and Homeland Security both have the legal authority to use counter-drone technology. At this point, it wouldn't be helpful to get into what that is or how that works, because, well, for obvious reasons.
Okay, Juliet?
Back to the drone. So how high does it fly? Is it tethered to anything? Like how does it operate over the crowd?
All right, now I'll ask more. All right, so it'll be on top of one of the buildings on Times Square. It is tethered because we don't want it flying over a crowd. We'll never have it over a crowd. The area that it's going to be in will be cordoned off, so God forbid anything happened to the drone, it'll fall down to an area that's already cordoned off that no one's at.
How big is it?
How big is the drone? Yay big. No, it's not huge. Once it's up in the air, it'll probably be hard to see.
Thank you for that scientific explanation. Jillian?
Just to continue on the drones.
Okay.
What are you looking? What are you going to be looking for with the drones? Like, what is it going to allow you to do that you haven't been able to do?
It's just going to, we have, obviously, we have aviation up that night too, but it's going to just give us an additional view of the crowd. And, you know, how many pens are out there, Steve? 65. 65 pens. So it'll give us an expansive view from up above, which will be helpful.
And I'm guessing, based on the comments about the anti-drone or counter-drone technology, any drone enthusiasts should leave their drones at
Yes, you should leave their drones at home. Thank you.
Your drone at home.
Thank you. All right. In the back row?
Hi, how is the rain going to affect things like the drone or maybe the bomb detection dogs? Do you expect any problems with that?
No, we don't foresee any problems with the rain. Obviously, there were no issues last year with the 4-degree weather, which was the coldest, the second coldest I think I've ever been. So we don't anticipate any issues. With the drone, this is the first time we're going to be using it at a large-scale event, and as we go through the night, if the picture isn't clear, then we'll have to rely on aviation. Yep.
The recent terror incident in France and some arrests that have been made over there, anything new that you're seeing this year as far as either propaganda or just any sort of foreign actors on the terrorism front?
John, you want to speak about that a little bit?
Sure. Propaganda has become a key weapon of terrorist organizations, particularly ISIS, where their operational and external operational ability has been degraded. Propaganda has become a driver. We've seen less propaganda this year than we saw the previous year, likely because of the degradation in their operational ability from a headquarters sense. But we do look at the propaganda. We've seen propaganda related to New York. Some of that's been reported in the media. We've seen propaganda related to other cities, but we've seen that before. It's part of normal now.
Still on topic? Yeah.
When you say that the hotel security from last year was successful, was it successful for any specific reason, or was it just comforting and it seemed like a good idea, or did it uncover anything that was potentially?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about whether it uncovered anything, but it's not just a matter of comfort. This is a practical evolution of how we protect large-scale events. And again, it wasn't just the NYPD. It was us working with hotels and their security staffs to make sure that we can prevent that from happening. There's a lot of effort, there's a lot of manpower involved in this, and it's not just the day of the event, it's the days and weeks leading up to the event. So it's an important part of how we protect large-scale events. Yep.
It's reasonable to assume, despite your advice, that some people are going to send drones up there just to look around, just to play. They're toys that a lot of people own. Now, in that event, does that pose a risk to the crowd if you're interfering with the drone's flight?
I'm not going to get specifically into what the technology does, but we have had events in the past where there have been drones flown innocently over crowds, and we've been able to figure out where they come from and get the people to bring them back. So just don't, to anybody coming into the city, to New Yorkers, don't fly a drone that night. There's going to be millions of people out there. There's viewing areas for this. There's no need to fly a drone. And if you do fly one, there's a good chance you're going to end up getting arrested. Any other on-topic questions? Yeah, in the back?
How do we come across the 1 to 2 million estimate? Is there science behind that? And does it affect how many people you put on the streets? One is a million difference. How does that sort of...
So we put out a package every year that John says I will differ with his, it's not off the shelf. It's developed every year. The day after, on January 2nd, we continue to work up to that. It's, the estimate is the number of pens that are out there, and you see on 8th Avenue, you see on 6th Avenue, you see on Central Park South, you see not on 42nd Street, but a couple blocks lower. They're just thousands and thousands of people. So that's an estimate that's been used in the past. I've seen no reason. I think the weather it's supposed to rain on Monday into Tuesday. That might prevent some people coming out, but the weather's supposed to be a lot warmer than last year, so we anticipate a very large crowd and look forward to it. Juliet, second question.
How early do the pens open to get the people?
Chief Harrison will answer that.
So the pens, we'll start letting people into the pens around 11 o'clock. Now, the concern is...
AM.
AM,
That's
sorry.
very important.
Yes, 11 o'clock AM. But just be advised, if you do happen to leave the pen, that you're not going to be allowed back in.
Do the trains, will the subways be running in those areas?
There are some subway closures, and this is all going to be posted on NYPD News and Twitter, which we'll be using throughout the event to inform people as to what the street closures are as we go through the night.
But to clarify, trains will be running, some station
Yeah, the
entrances and
trains will
exits
be
may
running, but
closed.
some of the stations will be closed. Yep. Mark?
Just to be clear about, is it only one drone, or is there going to be multiple?
We're going to keep that one a mystery, all right?
And the capacity of the camera on the drone, how far will it be?
I'm not even answering the number of drones we're putting up there. I'm not going to tell you how powerful the camera is. Okay.
Do you have numbers on exactly how many blocker trucks you're using, how many bomb detection dogs?
Yes, we do, but we will not be sharing them with you. Okay, thank you. Many.
Many.
Okay, I think the back row.
Question, how is what happened in Gatwick with the drone situation affecting what you guys do? to combat unauthorized?
I mean, and this is, again, this is something I talk about almost at every press conference. We have to pay attention not just to what happens in New York City. We have to pay attention to what happens around the world, and that's why it's so, our NYPD liaison program, which is, the Police Foundation helps fund us with that. We can get this information back in real time. You know, that's something, obviously, that was brought to our attention, and that's why we're building up our counterterrorism program, counter-drone program, and we're not doing that by ourselves. You know, we're looking at private industry, we're looking at our federal law enforcement partners. So, you know, as we move forward here, it's something that we are concerned about.
They did do a very good job stopping drones. Do you have better technology, or have you learned from what they did do?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into whether they did a good job or a bad job. Yep.
Assume you'll have plainclothes people inside the tent.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that one a mystery, too. All right? Yeah.
Please.
Off-topic question regarding the explosion last night. Is there any...
Hold on, I gotta create some closure here. Any more on-topic questions? All right, now you're up.
Just any developments in the explosion last night at Con Ed?
So I can tell you that obviously it was caused many people in New York City some great concern. I do have some numbers for you. Half an hour before the transformer explosion, there was the lights, there was about 501 9/11 calls. In a half hour covering the explosion, there was more than 3,200 9/11 calls in New York City. And there were all manners of calls. There was explosion. Some people thought it was a bomb. There's blue light in the sky, blackout conditions. So we were on this from, you know, as soon as it started. You know, it came over my phone immediately. I was speaking with Terry, speaking with Phil Wolzak to make sure we coordinated with Con Ed and FDNY to make sure everybody in the city knew exactly what was happening up in Astoria to ease people's fears. So right from the start, we were on this. Yep.
The attack on Officer Syed over in the subway by Muslim, at least one of them had several ICE detainers on this particular suspect. I think it was Eliseo Alvarez Santos. And I'm curious, why is it, he also had a bench warrant as well issued on him. I'm curious as to why these particular ICE detainer requests weren't honored before the attack happened.
Or after we arrested them, I guess? Yeah, I'm going to have to take a look at that, and if he did have a bench warrant, I'm going to have to take a look at that, too. I wasn't aware that one of the five had a bench warrant on them. They definitely should have been kept in custody if they had a warrant on them. I'm going to have to get back to you with an answer on the detainer question.
If they did.
But there's as you know, from coming to previous press conferences, they can be honored, but there are some variables that there are some rules that we need to follow, and that's from a mayor's executive order from 20 years ago. So, yep.
As far as the blue light, is there any concerns currently there following the environmental that people have?
And we're in contact with Con Ed right now. We're not getting that from Con Ed, so thanks for that
But
question.
the city is monitoring that, too, and so far, we haven't gotten any negative reports, but we are keeping a close eye on the air quality question.
Commissioner, speaking of violence involving police, there are a couple of published reports today that talk about how whether it be 12 to 13% of the amount of police that have been shot and killed nationwide this year. I know you make a point of tweeting out after most police-involved deaths, an image of that officer and information about him. Is there anything that you're seeing in the department with respect to violence on police as far as any sort of a trend? And just what are your thoughts on what we've seen this year?
Nationwide? I mean, being a police officer is an extremely difficult job. It is, you know, on January 5th, January 6th, actually, I'll be starting my 37th year. And, you know, from the levels we've seen in the past, they have gone down, but this is a job that we have to be constantly vigilant. And it's not just the police, all society needs to make a contribution to help and keep us safe. And if you see what we're doing in New York City, where since neighborhood policing began in May of 2015, we're looking to build that trust up. So the community trusts us. Our police officers have that trust in the community to know that if something does happen or is about to happen, that we'll have the ability to stop it from happening. You know, keeping the people of this great city safe is obviously my primary concern, but keeping the police officer in this city safe is something that I think about every second of the day. So it's something that really does concern me. Yep.
Commissioner, if you could just back up for a second to the Con Edison situation last night. When it happened at 9/12, and Mayor, I don't know if you want to add something, but Was your inclination to head to the scene because of the number of calls, the 3,200 911 calls, the social media? What did you do when you first heard about it, and were you pleased with the police response?
Yeah, I was pleased with the police response. My first inclination was not to respond to the scene because there are transformer explosions in the city every now and again. And my job was to gather as much information as possible and to make sure that whatever information we had was shared with the public immediately so we could put people, so we could calm people down, to let them know that was nothing terrible. I mean, it was an explosion. Thank goodness nobody was hurt, but it was important that we got that information out there in real time. And I'd like to thank Phil Walzak from DCPI. They got that messaging out there immediately.
The question is for the mayor. In January, the new program is going to start for low-income workers to apply for the Metro card. Is there any plan that the city has?
Let's finish the policing issues, and then we'll go to that, because we're going to do one quick update, and we'll go to off-topic, other topics. So let's just stay on policing first.
Juliet?
What can you tell us about this hole-in-the-wall gang in the Bronx that is hitting up supermarkets and commercial establishments?
All right.
So, beginning in September, we started being hit with a crew of individuals that are hitting commercial on the midnight hours, breaking through sometimes multiple stores to get to essentially what they're going after is safes in supermarkets. They've hit a number of supermarkets. Pioneer has been hit a couple times, multiple precincts throughout the Bronx. We're up to 8 hits right now. This is something that we see from time to time. And when we see it, we also then tend to see it spreading outside the city to neighboring jurisdictions. So this is something that our major case team is currently investigating. Midnight crew, we ask anyone with any information, wherever it comes from, no matter how innocuous that information is, feed it to us through Crime Stoppers, and we will determine the relevance of it in this investigation. But right now, it's an active case being investigated.
In one vehicle? How do they get there?
I'm not going to get into what exactly we know about their modus operandi. A number of individuals that tend to come in late hours wearing masks. We do have some leads, but it is actively investigated. And like the police commissioner said, we need your help. We need the community's help. Somebody out there knows about this group, and that could be the piece of information that we need to make it stop.
Jillian?
Mayor, I'm just curious sort of like where you were when the blue light situation happened, if you saw it from where you were, and what your initial thought was. I think a lot of New Yorkers, it's a weird thing to see in the sky. People wondered if it was like UFO or any, like, were there any weird thoughts that you had when you saw it?
I did not think it was a UFO. I was on 86th Street. I was not over at Gracie, so I didn't have like the sight line toward it. The first alerts I got was with the understanding that it was at a Con Ed facility and not spread beyond there. And that fire department was going to give us the initial estimate as to whether something bigger was going on or it was being contained. And I got a series of updates in the minutes after that increasingly showed the situation was under control. So I also want to commend everybody and the police department, all the other city agencies, City Hall, everyone who got information out very quickly. I think people needed to hear information very, very quickly. But the good news is we very rapidly knew that no one was injured, thank God, and we very rapidly understood that it was a contained situation and that there was not going to be a bigger ramification from it. That's what we needed to know quickly and get out to the world.
In the back?
To go back to crime stats for a moment, it appears that hate crimes have still appeared fairly high in the year 2018. Is there anything that the NYPD is planning to do differently to address hate crimes in the coming year? I know, Commissioner, you mentioned you would consider adding more people to the hate crime task force.
All right, let Chief Shea will give you an overview. Is that right?
Just in terms of what we're seeing in 2018, we're seeing about, still some time left in the year, but about a 4% increase in hate crimes. The vast majority of the hate crimes that we see in New York City this year is not different than what we see in prior years. It's anti-Semitic in nature. It tends to be criminal mischief. It tends to be drawing hate symbols, whether it's on a subway train or on a mailbox on the corner or sometimes it's directed at individual people. But that's the broad sense. When you look year over year, about a 4% increase. In terms of the manpower, hate crimes, I think we have a sufficient number of personnel in that unit. I've had this conversation with Inspector Molinari, the CO of the unit, as recently as a couple of weeks ago. They support the other detectives throughout the Detective Bureau, so it's not an all or nothing type approach. And in terms of what we can do, I think education is a big piece of this. Educating the public, educating people. Sometimes there's deliberate intentions on the crimes that take place. And sometimes, though, we have to start very young in educating people about the impact of whether it's speech or actions and how others perceive them. So it's not an all or nothing. I think we're well situated, though, to address the crimes that come in as they do.
Question for the mayor. This morning you mentioned some of the challenges in enforcing noise complaints at buildings, and you mentioned needing some kind of legislative changes. Are you actively going to pursue those changes? And the other question is, what other kind of issues related to noise are you planning to look at in 2019?
Definitely going to pursue any changes, any tools we needed. We're going to have a lot to say about how to reduce noise in 2019. I'm going to come out with a vision that will address a variety of pieces of that challenge. But one thing that's clear to me is that our police officers need additional tools. And what I need to get clear with my team is, where we will get that authorization, if it's state legislation, if it's city legislation, or other means. But I've talked to a lot of precinct commanders, a lot of officers about the challenge they face. Clearly, look, officers showing up at someone's door often does the trick right there. People get the message and they take it seriously, but there are some cases where that's not enough, and we have to have the right kind of sanctions in that case.
Yep.
Hi. With the number of emotionally disturbed people that you're bringing into hospitals or other health centers, have you noticed an uptick in the number of people who are on the streets who are having any sort of personal behavioral crisis that you need to address?
And this is part of having our the CIT training that we do, is to make sure that our police officers are able to recognize that. And this is why we're also our co-response teams, where we send two police officers with a practitioner from the Department of Mental Health. This is something that they do. This is something that our whole patrol force needs to recognize. And that is one way moving forward that we'll be able to get people the help that they need.
Yeah, and just a quick follow on that. I've obviously gotten a lot of information from the the work that my wife has done on the mental health issue. And the going assumption among experts is 1 in 5 Americans suffers from some kind of mental health challenge at any given time. So I think it's fair to say this is a very widespread reality that perhaps in the past many times was not recognized for what it is. I mean, the fact that so many of our officers now have training is helping us to act on something that in the past may have been totally misunderstood or missed, and that is ultimately a good thing that's going to allow us to serve people better.
I know you have more of the centers being available to the NYPD to drop off emotionally disturbed people in that position. But I'm curious if you've seen an uptick in the number of people who need that sort of intervention.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get back to you with the specific numbers, okay?
Last call, please.
Mr. Mayor, you said, just wanted to know that, are you counting on Con Ed's investigation, or are you doing your own investigation? I think you mentioned that you're also checking.
We're monitoring the air quality ourselves. Con Ed is doing an initial investigation. We're going to certainly look at that and see if there's any further questions that come out of that.
Thanks, everybody. We'll take a quick reset.